Scenario 1. Jane is a single mom. She is uninsured. At the playground, her toddler falls and breaks his arm. She needs to call an ambulance and get emergency care and surgery for her child. How much does that cost?
So in Canada, each province does have their own mini kind of healthcare system, but across Canada, our healthcare is covered. So if our child were to fall and break an arm and need an ambulance, we would be responsible for covering the cost of the ambulance. Now that would be approximately $400. If you had private insurance, like additional insurance through work or whatever, that would cover the cost and you would be reimbursed later on. The surgery itself and the visit to the ER, completely taken care of. However, if there's medications after the fact, the prescriptions would be covered by the parent. Usually, though, if they're low income, they cover for a provincial kind of like coverage to help with the cost. And if you have private insurance, that helps with the cost as well, which most people do. They have like basic kind of coverage. So yeah, you're looking at about $500 to $700, depending on what kind of prescriptions you need after your ambulance.
Scenario 2. Beth just had a baby. How long does your country give Beth to take off of work with her child, and how much is she paid during that time?
In Canada, we have two different types of maternity leave that is provided by the government in Canada, but that is under the contingency that you have worked 600 hours in the previous, I believe, 2 years. And so with that, you can choose to take 12 months maternity leave, or you can choose to take an extended leave of 18 months. Now, in that 18 months or that 12 months, throughout that entire collective time, you would receive the exact same amount. So it doesn't matter if you choose the 18 months or the 12 months, you would get like, say it's like $20,000. It's not, but like say $20,000 for 12 months, you would only get $20,000 for 18 months. All you're doing is like spreading out those payments to take an additional 6 months with your child. Now, with that said, you will get 55%, a maximum of 55% of your like potential earnings, that what you could have been making based on what your last tax assessments were and like how many hours you put in. And so usually it caps out about cut out. So it caps out usually, I think it's $900 bi-weekly. And then that's what you get for the government. Now, that does not include, some people have contracts with their companies where their companies actually pay into maternity. So they actually will get even more on top of that. So, however, there is a government funded 12 or 18 months, depending on what you want. We also have paternity leave. So I believe the fathers are entitled to 5 weeks. And now I say fathers, but it's paternal. So, now obviously we have same-sex couples and but however, so yeah, whatever parent, if one parent's taking maternity and then the other parent can take paternal, they get, I think, 5 to 10 weeks. I'll have to actually Google it, but they do get paid time off and like allowance that their work has to make, like their work has to let them have it off. It's against the law for their work to not allow them that time.
Jacob is a high school student who's worked very hard his whole life to get good grades and go to college. How much will a 4-year degree cost Jacob? Carol?
If you were looking to go get a 4-year degree and you don't have to pay for housing, like if you have your housing covered, you have your food covered, you're looking at just the tuition for 4 years, depending on the program, you could be paying anywhere from $25,000 to $200,000. It really depends on the program you're taking and how many courses you're taking, and then how many textbooks are required for that course and like what other materials you need.
Carol finds out at her 16-week pregnancy appointment that her fetus is not compatible with life. How does she get health care? And is anyone waiting outside the clinic where she receives care to harass her?
If there's something wrong with your baby at 16 weeks, you have every right to have an abortion. Now, if you were to go to that clinic, there could potentially be someone standing across. It depends on the day of the week. It depends how warm the weather is. Sometimes you'll find them there, sometimes you won't. The clinics are very great though, and they treat everyone very well with lots of respect. And I hope that it stays this way.
And lastly, Matthew is a kindergartner. How afraid should Matthew be of dying in a mass shooting? How often do school shootings happen in your country? And what are your gun laws?
Now, this last question is one that haunts me. My oldest child will be 3. My daughter will be 2 soon. And I am terrified for them to go to school. And we live in Canada. And it's ridiculous because Canada does not have the same amount of gun violence that the United States does. Our population is nowhere near what it is like in the United States. My kids don't need to go to the school with that fear. It's not like a common thing that they think of or know about. Obviously, as a parent, though, it's in the back of my mind. And as parents, we are heavily debating constantly if we're going to homeschool or not. It's a real thought. We don't know the way the world is going right now. It's crazy. Like, people are getting shot and stabbed almost every day where I live. So